This is Franchise Today, brought to you by FRM Solutions, providers of the best-in-class software solutions for franchise relationship management. Franchise Today is your destination for weekly information, conversations, and interviews with accomplished industry leaders, all of whom share best practices for sustainable growth and sensible franchising. Here now, your host, Stan Friedman, to kick off this week's podcast.
Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. I'm Stan Friedman, and this is Franchise Today. Well, here we are, the beginning of June, as we've just crossed the threshold of period 3 of Q2 in what feels to me like the fastest moving year of my life. I talk a lot about that feeling of a great quickening. Is it just me, or do some of you feel that way too? I'd love to know if you'd drop me a line, but I digress. New question. Have we been scoring some great talent as guests this season? Each week, I feel like the bar gets raised as the guest pool gets richer and richer in the content that they deliver. And with no doubt, that continues today as Mary Kennedy Thompson takes the stage. Mary is CEO of BNI, which stands for Business Network International, with franchisees in 76 countries around the world. And, oh, by the way, she just happens to serve as this year's chairwoman of the International Franchise Association as well. I mean, come on. And for those of you who have suggested that I bring more women in franchising to the podcast, this week I bring you Wonder Woman. I'm just saying. Mary Kennedy Thompson actually becomes the second of 2 female guests in as many weeks. And next week it'll become a trifecta when I'm joined by Yvonne Varady, co-founder of Clean Eats. Also, over the horizon in the weeks ahead, we'll be hearing from Any Lab Test Now CEO Clarissa Bradstock, Barb Moran, CEO of the Moran family of brands, Josh Wall, COO at Unleashed Brands, Peter Yang at PokeWorks, Chris and Andrew McQuiston at Goldfish Swim School, and Stretch Zone CEO Tony Zaccario. Quite a lineup already in queue. So, as you can see, no dog days of summer at Franchise Today. Remember to subscribe to the podcast at www.franchisetodaypodcast.com or anywhere you go for your podcasts. That way you'll find new episodes in your inbox every Wednesday at noon as these interviews drop. Okay, enough said about that. A quick timeout and I'll return in 2 minutes or less with Mary Kennedy Thompson. Don't go away.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
Franchise Today is brought to you by FRM Solutions, offering the only CRM tool built exclusively for franchising that lets you have it your way. Whether you're a single brand needing professional tools across departments or a portfolio of brands needing franchise-specific CRM across the enterprise. Either way, FRM satisfies the needs of many with the power of one. That's right, one single instance of FRM is all it takes across departments or across brands. So if you've had it with inflexible, one-size-fits-all CRM, end your frustration today. FRM offers robust dashboarding, tailored reporting, and with open APIs, FRM pushes, pulls, and integrates with other databases, providing you with a single source of truth. Don't just take my word for it. Visit them at frmsolutions.com and order up a demo today. Mary Kennedy Thompson's impressive career boasts 30 years in franchising, supporting business owners and entrepreneurs of all sizes and significant experience in global expansion, development, and integrations. A compassionate and effective servant leader, Mary Kennedy Thompson joined BNI as CEO following some 18 years in service to Neighborly and their 30 brands and 5,500 franchisees in 6 countries around the world. Most recently, she served as COO, but had been with the company since 2006. Prior to Neighborly, she was a successful multi-unit franchisee and served 8 years in the United States Marine Corps as a logistics officer before that. The International Franchise Association has awarded Mary the William Rosenberg Foundation Leadership Award in 2023 for her outstanding contributions and leadership in advancing the mission of the IFA Educational Foundation. And she's also received the IFA Bonnie Levine Award, their highest award for women who have made an impact on franchising. And if that's not enough, Mary too has received the Crystal Compass Award for extraordinary leadership in franchising as well. Please join me as I welcome Wonder Woman to Franchise Today. Mary Kennedy Thompson, welcome to Franchise Today.
Thanks so much, Dan. I really appreciate your having me here. I love having conversations with you.
Well, it's always my pleasure too, so thank you. And as we do every week here on Franchise Today, Mary, we're going to take you back into the Wayback Machine to tell us how and when franchising and you bumped into one another. Coming out of the military, I might add, with quite the illustrious career in the Marines, right?
I loved every minute of it.
Well, tell us how franchising connected with you when you got out of the service.
It's funny. A lot of people in the military, we don't know what's on the other side of the fence when we think about getting out. Will and I, my husband and I, we knew there was time for us to settle down because we had children that were of school age and we needed to not have to move them every couple of years. And someone asked my daughter once, were your parents strict? And she's like, they were both Marines. What do you think? So we thought we really needed to settle down. So we decided who got out first. Whoever got the first job would get out first. And I got a job at a company called Baxter Scientific Products. And I was a sales rep and I learned so much. And I think people don't realize what an honorable job selling really is. If you're doing your job well, you're selling someone something they need or want. And I enjoyed it, but I was an individual contributor and I really missed leading a team. My husband came home one night from a chamber mixer. He was a stockbroker and he came home from a chamber mixer with this little brochure from a company back then that was called Cookies by Design Cookie Bouquet. And he just put it on my dresser because I'd been talking about, I feel like I want to be in business, but I can't figure out where or how. We would drive around and think, what do you think all these civilians do? Because we were both military brats and grew up in the military. And I was looking at this booklet and I was thinking, man, I could sell these cookies all day long. They're so cool, but I don't know how to make them. I don't know how to sell them. I certainly don't know how to make money selling them. And at the back of the brochure, there were 3 magic words said for franchising information. And this was so long ago, you didn't even go online. You'd up a phone and called someone and they mailed me a packet. And Will came home one night from work and I had the packet all laid across the table. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. I can see it. I can taste it. I can feel it. This is what I want to do. And I'm blessed that a lot of times you're only as good as your support network. And I have a great support network. And he didn't say, what on earth are you thinking? How could we ever do this? Why? He said, when? When do you want to start? So that was our foray into franchising. As franchisees first, we were multi-unit franchisees in Austin, Texas. And I never looked back.
How many years did you spend on the Z side?
About 8 years on the franchisee side. And we had 3 locations for multi-unit. It was the end of 1999. And we were just starting to think about, it's probably time for us to the businesses are doing well, put them up for sale, create a nest egg. We always try to look 10 years out. Although as I get older and older, looking 10 years out looks kind of daunting. And we just realized that it was time for us to harvest some of our investment and our wealth. And I was ready for some new and different challenges. So I went to the franchisor and said, we're going to sell these. I love this brand, but it's just time. We felt like it was a good time. We sold them in 2000. And she said, why don't you come work for us? And I honestly, truly said, I don't think I can come work for the dark side. And she laughed at me and she said, I'm mailing you a ticket. Come meet with me. So I came there and I was in the 32nd largest market. We were in the 32nd largest market at the time. We were number 6 in the brand. And she's like, I just want you to come teach everybody what you've been doing. And so they had no field program. I built their field program from the ground up. And the first year I did like 130 site visits. And I wanted to go get my business back again and do it all over because I learned so much. I was like, oh my gosh, there's all this great information out there. How do we bring all that together and help grow everybody? To this day, one of my favorite jobs was being a business coach. I really, really enjoyed going out to the shops, looking and seeing how their business was being run, and then coaching them to more profit, better retention of people, and growing their businesses.
And you stuck with the corporate side for how long there?
6 years. I pretty much did every job till I was president of the company. And I was president, and I kept running into this guy that was from this company called Dwar Group. His name was Mike Bidwell, and he was the chief operating officer at the time of Dwar Group. And he and I kept running into each other at the International Franchise Association conventions. We sat on 2 or 3 panels together. And at one point he called me and he said, I have this company called Mr. Rooter Plumbing, and we've been looking for a president for some time now, and I think you're it. And I said, well, I don't know anything about plumbing. I'm not even sure I know how to spell it.
You didn't know anything about cookies either, did you?
No, I didn't. And it's true. You should have seen me learning how to decorate and make cookies. I was the slow student for sure. And he said, yeah, but franchising, business, how to grow businesses. He goes, that's really what matters. And we had a series of conversations. And about 6 months later, I took over then Dwar Groups and still Dwyer Group's largest brand. But at that point, there were 6 companies within Dwyer Group, 6 brands. And so I stepped in, and during the time I was president, which was for 9 years, I did manage to earn my plumbing license. So I did learn how to spell plumbing. I'm just so sold on franchising. It is the great American dream. It's the great French dream. It's the great Canadian dream. It's the great Indian dream. It's the great dream of how you can put a process and systems in front of people so that they can control their own destiny following those systems and be operationally excellent. And I'm hugely biased on it, but I've seen so much success created from it. I couldn't be in any other industry. It's really my passion. And so I started with Mr. Reuter, and we had great growth. And we started in '06. And if you remember, in '07, '08 was the great financial crisis. Some people call it the Great Recession. I'm a plumber. I like to call it the crappy recession. And I was pretty nervous because I didn't know a lot about plumbing back then. But when you, as a leader, can put things in perspective for your people and help them understand what's happening and give them ways to act and proceed to work through and around it, you can really change things. And so I loved it. I loved it every minute. And then they were getting ready to make Mike the CEO, and they were looking for chief operating officer. And then Dwyer Group asked me if I would come up and be the COO. So Mike and I moved into those positions at the same time. And I was like, no, I really like being the president of Mr. Reuter. I love knowing the franchise owners. I knew every franchise owner, their children, broke bread with them, helped them grow, helped them open businesses. And leading leaders within a much larger organization is different. But Mike said, it's time for you to take what you know and bring it here. And so from the time he and I stepped into those roles, we had just started our 7th brand. We were doing about $425 million in revenue. And on the day that I left that role, we had 30 brands doing $4.3 billion. And I always say, I'm very proud of the growth. I've spent a lot of time in high growth companies, but what I'm most proud of is as we grew the company, we grew the values as well. And if you grow something and you lose your heart, I'm not sure the growth is worth it. And so it was great to grow it and grow in our culture as well.
Well, that's amazing. And the Dwyer culture, the neighborly culture, is so fundamental. And it's not something that any company can fake or try to just talk the talk instead of walking it. A very principle-centered leadership example. I don't know of many or any that could beat that. Who was behind that? Did it start with Don?
So it did and it didn't. So Don did have a set of values that he talked about, and he passed away in '94. And when the year he passed away, the company was very concerned about, when you lose a founder, you want to make sure you don't lose your heart or the heart and soul of the business. And so a group of leaders, including Mike, including Dina Dwyer Owens, they got together and they said, let's operationalize these values. And it came to 15 values with 4 categories: respect, integrity, customer focus, and having fun in the process, which spells out rich. So you'll hear neighborly folks say, we live rich. And that was in '94, and Neighborly has never looked back on that. It's always been those values. And anytime a meeting is started, they recite the values or they bring a value up. And it is special. And I've been so lucky to be in organizations that index high on culture. The Marine Corps indexed high on culture, Neighborly indexes high on culture, and BNI, which is my current company, Business Network International, indexes high on culture. So I count myself as very lucky and blessed to be in organizations where culture matters and values matter.
But, in leadership in those companies, you're as much responsible for instilling it and protecting it as you are for feeling lucky about living it.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when I stepped up to the COO role, the people who were our private equity sponsors at the time, I met with them and I said, I'm going to work hard and grow this company and live by the values. And it was Sam who said to me, you're not just going to work hard to uphold the culture, you are the culture.
There you go.
And it really stuck with me how important that was to remember that leaders, we cast a long shadow. We need to remember where we cast our shadows and how we stand.
No truer words could be spoken. And how many different ownership companies were you involved in transactions with at Dwyer?
5. Mike and I went through all 5 together.
And remained through all 5 of them. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so when I came in, Riverside had us. And they had bought then Dwyer Group, now Neighborly. It had been public and they brought it back to private. So I came in when they were fairly new in the whole period, and then been through all the way up through KKR until I went to have the opportunity to lead and serve BNI.
That's just amazing. It's amazing. It's a Cinderella story. I mean, you come from humble beginnings as a servant to the country and you bring the best of those leadership skills into business, in a business that you had no background in. But they always say veterans in franchising are made for one another because you've demonstrated leadership as well as the ability to follow a playbook. Who better than that to be sitting where you are today as the CEO of BNI and the chairwoman of the International Franchise Association, just hopefully taking the best parts that you can give and sharing them with everyone in both of those organizations. We're talking today with Mary Kennedy Thompson, CEO at BNI and the chair of the International Franchise Association. We're going to come back, talk more about BNI and the IFA, but first, a quick timeout. Don't go away.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
Franchise Today is brought to you by FRM Solutions, offering the only CRM tool built exclusively for franchising that lets you have it your way. Whether you're a single brand needing professional tools across departments or a portfolio of brands needing franchise-specific CRM across the enterprise. Either way, FRM satisfies the needs of many with the power of one. That's right, one single instance of FRM is all it takes across departments or across brands. So if you've had it with inflexible, one-size-fits-all CRM, end your frustration today. FRM offers robust dashboarding, tailored reporting, and with open APIs, FRM pushes, pulls, and integrates with other databases, providing you with a single source of truth. Don't just take my word for it. Visit them at frmsolutions.com and order up a demo today. And we are back with Mary Kennedy Thompson wearing two hats, and we're going to talk as much as we can about both of those in our time left. Mary, why don't we start with BNI, which was a major piece of news about a year ago when we learned after what seemed to be a lifetime, Mary Kennedy Thompson was picking up stakes and going to take a leadership role with an international company that actually quit franchising some time back, didn't they?
Well, they didn't quit it. I think they weren't actively selling in the United States is what I would say. It was interesting. I'm as surprised as anyone to be sitting here today, both as the CEO of BNI and as the chair of the International Franchise Association. A little bit more than a year ago, that the then CEO of BNI, which stands for Business Network International, Graham Weimiller, called me and said, why don't we have a coffee? And we were talking, and he said, we've been looking for a CEO for a while, and I think you're it. We lost our beloved CEO at Neighborly in 2023, and Mike passed away unexpectedly. Prior to his leaving, I had told Mike that I was going to retire. It was time. I'd been at Neighborly for 18 years. I felt like I was at the pinnacle of my career. I'd done everything I was there to do and thought it was time. And then Mike passed away, and the board asked, and understandably so, for us to stay and to help hold the company together while they look for the next new leader. And I was more than happy to do so because I love that company and I always will. And so I was just holding that together, and they had just selected a new leader who was exactly, I think, what Neighborly needs at this point. And, Neighborly's just a whole different place and in their hold period, and was getting myself ready to I had pushed out my chairship by a year because Neighborly needed me. So I was going to do my chairship and then retire. And that's when Graham reached out to me and he said, just hear me out. And about the same time, I had a friend say to me, it's time, Mary, for you to move from success to significance. And I don't think one is ever too old or ever too young to move from success to significance. It really hit me hard. I heard about BNI and where it was, at what stage it was. It's a 40-year company, just like Neighborly, who's grown every single year, just like Neighborly, who is indexes very high in culture. And I didn't realize I did want to be a CEO. And it struck me like a thunderbolt one day that I could serve this organization and make a difference. I spent a lot of time in high growth companies, and BNI was uniquely poised to be the next really high growth company. And so I said, yes, I do want to do this. I feel like I can really serve this organization. And the more I looked at it, the more I got into it, I realized there were a lot of franchising opportunities. You touched on it earlier, Stan. We at BNI, we had not sold a franchise in the United States in 10 years, but there's plenty of area to sell. We just told ourselves we didn't have a lot to sell. And sometimes it's just like new eyes and new fresh thoughts and ideas came in to Neighborly, and probably is bringing in some really good things. Neighborly needed having a fresh set of eyes here, same thing. And we're very excited about it. We've already selling our first franchises. We did this year once we put everything in place. And what I really like about BNI, we are 370,000 members strong. Our mission is to grow our members' businesses through structured meetings and training and lifelong learning. And we have 7 values that we follow. The first one is our most important and my favorite one, which is givers gain. We were talking about that in a conversation prior to this, Dan, that we believe that first we give. We give before we do anything else. And if you give first without expectation of receiving, everything gets better. Everything gets better in the world. Everything gets better in business. Everything gets better for you. And we are a member-to-member generated referral company. So every week, if you think about every week, BNI members meet for an hour and a half, and it's usually a chapter of about 35 to 40 people. There's only one person in each industry, one plumber, one real estate agent, one real estate attorney, one insurance agent, et cetera, et cetera. And we send business to one another. And in the last 12 months, we've generated $12.8 billion in member-to-member generated business. When we say we want to change the way the world does business, we really mean it. We're in 78 countries. And I've always believed it's not the politicians that are going to bring the world together. It is the small business owners. It's Main Street. I think that IFA is the voice of Main Street and BNI is Main Street. It is Main Street that will bring people together because we want to bring people within a community together to do business across a state or a province, across a country and across the globe. It's going to be us, the small business owners, Main Streets, as they say in Europe, the town squares that bring the world together.
What does a day in the life look like for a franchisee at BNI?
A franchisee may have anywhere from 15 to 40 chapters. Some have more than that, but just generally that meet either on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, sometimes Fridays, usually mornings and lunches. And so can you imagine they might have 1,500 members across 10 chapters, or they might have 50 chapters across their territory. And what they're doing is they're doing a number of things. They're making sure that the chapters are meeting according to our standards. So we have really, it's the consistency of what we do is our magic. That is our magic, is that every week you're in this meeting and you're meeting with your fellow business owners and you're learning about them. And we teach them how to ask for a referral, how to talk about their business, how to do it in a way that generates business. And it does. And we have a great app that also tracks that as well and lets them know exactly what they're getting. And so they make sure that those meetings are run properly. And every chapter has a president, a vice president, a secretary. And I've been to dozens and dozens of meetings across the globe, probably close to 80 now. And those meetings run really, really well. I'm very impressed with the discipline that is held in those meetings. And then they're launching new chapters. Since every chapter only has one of each type of industry, we have some industries that really, really love BNI, like realtors and insurance agents. And so they might not be able to find a chapter because every chapter already has an insurance agent. So they'll come to us and say, can you help me create a chapter? So a franchisee will also help create and launch a chapter as well, because people love what it does for their business.
Who makes a great franchisee in BNI? Who do you look for? What kind of profile?
That's a great question. First of all, they have to be very purpose-driven. If you're just in it for the business of business, that's not enough. You have to literally want to change the way the world does business. Somebody who is very business-minded, likely probably already owned their own business already, and maybe even was a member. The first time I was a member was 1994 when I was a franchisee. It helped me immensely in my business. And somebody who enjoys networking, getting to know people, and can bring people together and lead, inspire, and motivate them to follow the disciplined processes that create referrals across the chapters. And not all the referrals happen within a chapter. Sometimes they happen across states and across the globe as well. But they need to be somebody who enjoys the art and the science of networking and people, and a people person.
One last question on BNI, and we then flip gears and go to the IFA. What about benevolence? I know that's been a huge part of your life at Neighborly. Is there a national or even an international charity that BNI supports, or how does that work?
We have a BNI foundation that supports children in education. And we're looking actually to find an organization to partner with, because we think sometimes when you partner with a larger organization, 1 + 1 is 3 and you can do even more. But what we'll do is we'll work with young adults, late teenagers who are interested in business and want to learn about business. And sometimes we bring them into our chapters. We do special training sessions. We will offer up grants so that they can join programs and learn business. And the foundation has been part of us for, close to 30 years now. We're always looking for great people at every level of our organization. And good to great, Jim Collins always says, first who, then what. And we have some great and talented people here, and we'll continue to bring in great and talented people, whether it's on the franchisee side, the franchisor side. And I tell people I'm a believer in diversity. I think organizations should be diverse, diversity of experience, diversity of thought. Just diversity makes an organization so much stronger. And if you can couple that with a set of values that people ascribe to, then it gets easier to make decisions because we all agree to the same set of values. I started with our giver's gain, but we also, one of our values is building relationships and accountability and being positive and recognition and traditions and innovations, things that will help us really help grow a business. And so with being in 77 countries, we're as diverse can be. And yet I haven't been to a meeting that is run differently or that the values aren't embraced and ascribed to, which makes us very strong. It's our magic.
Well, that's incredible that you've got that kind of backbone in your organization. We've got some time left to change gears. And I remember about a year and a half or 2 years ago, you told me what you've shared with the audience today, that you might be in your last act and getting ready to hang it up and retire. And look what's happened. Anything but. You're sitting at the head of the table of two amazing organizations, and taking leadership in both places is something that isn't for the faint of heart. So in the times that we're in, where IFA has had some battles, thanks to our legislators at both state and national levels, you're taking the reins at a time where we've just turned a pretty important corner, and you get to maybe smooth things out a little bit now. What do you see there?
Well, I think this is the time that we need to be really, really smart across the board and reach across all aisles. I believe franchising transcends politics. I have thought that my entire 30-year career. We are Main Street, and there is not a person in the country that doesn't want to see Main Street succeed. And so what we should be doing during these times is reach across all aisles and have conversations about why franchising matters and tell our stories. IFA has done some new branding, which I really like, and we're putting some smart stories and messaging together to tell the story, because a lot of Americans, a lot of people across the globe, they don't know what franchising is. They think it's what I've said before is franchising is big business, and more importantly, it's small business. Franchising is global, and more importantly, it's local. It is your local person. When I had my Cookies by Design franchises, I was the local person. We hired about 40 people with family members. It was probably 150 people that were affected by what we did. We gave to our community. We supported the local football program. We made donations. Our kids went to the schools. It is very local and personal, and we should be telling those stories everywhere and helping people understand that it really is honestly what our country rolls on. And so I would like us to get our voice out that it transcends, are you left or right or center? Are you this or that? It is Main Street with Main Street needs, with Main Street creating jobs and being part of their communities and giving back to their communities.
I mean, who can argue with that? Politically, I completely agree with you. So what do you see coming down the road, Mary, if you were to take out the tea leaves or the crystal ball, look ahead 1, 3, maybe even 5 years, if that's possible, as quick as the world is changing these days? What's ahead for both franchising and for BNI?
So I think with the uncertainty that people feel, and maybe it's just what it is right now, there are just some people that feel uncertainty. When people feel uncertainty, like, is there a recession or there's not a recession? Is this change going to happen? Is that change? Organizations that can create certainty are going to be organizations people are going to flock to. IFA creates certainty. It's focused on protecting, enhancing, and promoting franchising. So franchisors should be coming into and flocking to that, and franchisees as well, because it creates a certainty in an uncertain time. And that's what I very much appreciate. And BNI does the same thing. In a time when marketing costs are going through the roof, for us, one of our data points is for every dollar that a member spends in dues, they get $73 in closed business. I don't know another return on ad spend or return on investment out there like that. That's a certainty. And so with that, I see organizations like BNI, like IFA, that they will be growing because people are going to be looking for this certainty in these uncertain times. And then, everyone talks AI. Sometimes it just gives me a headache to think about it, but it's going to change the way a lot of people do business. And what's going to become really important is the human interaction. People are going to need help in understanding how to network and create the human interaction. It's going to become more important. And there will be so many great uses for AI. We have many of them we're using at BNI right now to help connect members to one another and create more business for them. And with that, the face-to-face Nothing beats that. And Stan, you know that you and I have been networking through franchising for probably close to 2 decades now, the two of us. Nothing beats that face-to-face. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of things that AI can do, and they will lift us up and help grow us. And they're going to create this need for organizations to be able to create that face-to-face connection.
I've always proffered that it is important in franchising to recognize the need to be high tech, but more important to be high touch. And I don't think that ever changes. I totally agree with you. Mary, before I ask for contact info, is there anything today that I didn't ask that you wished I did?
Oh, that's a great question. Why does franchising matter? Sometimes people who don't know much about franchising will ask me that. And franchising matters because, and people who are in franchising, they've heard this before. People haven't heard this. You think nationally, but you act locally. You have this group that you belong to and you get to be part of. That whole African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And it allows you to go far. It allowed me to go far. It helped me create a business that I would never have been able to do on my own. It gave a certainty to me that allowed me to control my own destiny while having a blueprint to go off of. And franchising does that. It creates Main Street in a way that has some safety to it. And I think it's a really compelling and important part of our economics in the world. I really, truly believe that. So thanks for asking me that.
There you go. Well, I think the last thing we must do is help the audience find you again. So what about some contact info, be it for IFA and or for BNI?
Well, I'm pretty easily found on LinkedIn, and I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. So I always tell people, come send me a message through LinkedIn. I'm a big believer that a leader is only as strong as how they can respond to people. And if you don't respond to them, and then you complain about not having feedback, you have to wonder why you don't have feedback. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Mary Kennedy Thompson. I'd love to talk to you. I post a lot about both what we're doing at BNI and what we're doing at IFA and what it means and why it matters. And then my email is the world's easiest email, mary@bni.com. If you're a franchisor that would love to get your franchisees into our partner program where they can join chapters and we can help them join chapters, help them grow as quickly as possible, we'd love to talk to you. If you're a franchisee who wants to know more, love to connect you. And if you're somebody who just loves franchising and the business of franchising and you have a smart, good idea, I'd love to hear it.
We've covered every base, Mary, and it's been such a pleasure. As I said to you in the green room before we started, I don't know how I was going to get everything I wanted to touch on into a half hour, but I think we just about made it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And it's always great talking to you, Stan. You ask the best questions, and I say this as a complete compliment. You're one of the best networkers I know.
Wow, that's kind.
Not kind, I'm just honest.
Mary Kennedy Thompson, thanks for making this part of my day the best yet.
Same here, Stan. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap for today, but I'll return next week with Yvonne Varady, co-founder of Clean Eats, with yet another inspiring story to share. Until then, I'm Stan Friedman, wishing you the best, the very best of all things franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
Franchise Today is a production of FRM Solutions, providing best-in-class CRM tools to empower relationships with prospective and existing franchisees. Find them online at frmsolutions.com. Join Stan every Wednesday at noon Eastern for another episode of Franchise Today.